if you look really, really closely at one of these colonies, you can see that the overall shape or appearance of these guys is circular. And if you look in the lab manual, you can see a variety of different kinds of typical shapes for colonies that are out there. But really the form is the overall shape. And we can also take a look at the edge or the margin of the colony. And I'm not too sure how well this will focus right here. But if you're looking at the edge, a lot of the colonies that we're looking at are going to be circular. But these guys are going to have some little edge deformities, which is where we get this name serratia, because the original colonies that you get in nature actually look like they have serrated edges. Most of them, the entire edge is going to be circular, and so those kind of colonies we describe as an entire circular. And there's a variety of different things. You can see lobate edges where they're kind of like little lobes coming off. Some of them will grow in these long filaments like roots, and you get this rhizoidal appearance. So you can take a look in the lab manual at some of the typical kinds of forms and edges or margins that we see for the colonies. One of the other things that we can do is we can actually go in and measure the size of these guys. So just take a little ruler and literally just drop it right down on the side of your plate there and measure it. So with this one, I'm looking at my centimeter goes from 8 to 9 there. And so I can measure the diameter of one of these colonies here and say they're about 3 to 4 millimeters in width. Remember, when you're looking at something, your pinky is going to be a little over a centimeter, and then the lines that we see there are millimeters. So you could report it as, say, 0.4 centimeters or 4 millimeters. And so that's an easy way of measuring these. But notice some of them are going to be a little bit more packed together, and so the colonies might be a little bit smaller. So we always want to try and go for these isolated ones to get a good representative size. And the last thing we can look at is what's known as the elevation. And for that one, you're literally going to come in from the side and visualize them. And so if you look at this, you can see it's got a little bit of an elevation there. So these guys aren't totally flat, they're a little bit raised. So when we're looking at our colonies here, we can describe them using some of these terms that again are outlined in your lab manual, but we always want to try and focus on our three primary characteristics. Your overall shape or form, the margin or the edge, and then to describe the elevation, which can also range from flat to raised. You can have convex ones that are going to be like a little dome. You can even find ones that are what are known as crateriform that actually look like a volcano crater. And then of course you can also find some fuzzy ones that look kind of like a mole that's out there. So these are the terms that we would use to describe bacteria colonies that are growing up. And one of the things we'll see is when we're looking at the cells, you can describe spherical cells as coccus after the Greek word for berry. A lot of times students will describe their colonies as having a coccus shape, and that term is used to describe bacteria cells, not bacteria colonies. They might look similar, but a spherical cell is very different from a circular colony like what we see here with the Serratia marcescens. The other thing I wanted to show everyone is also I have the liquid culture that I made. And so here you can see again that slightly reddish tint. Well, there you can see the cells are growing in the broth. We've got that slight pinkish tint on the top for this culture. And also you can see again some of the cells have sunk to the bottom or formed a sediment. But if I wanted to, I could go back into this culture and pull some of the cells out of it and transfer them to a liquid or to a solid plate. You can also go from solid to liquid. You could do liquid to liquid. But remember, whenever we do this process, we want to try and maintain that aseptic technique try and reduce the chances of you contaminating your culture and also the chances of your culture contaminating you. So when you're in this lab, we would really just like you to be able to describe some of the terms and get familiar with using those things. And don't be surprised if you're going to be using them later on for other exercises.